Hello there, this is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So, we're going to continue this little mini-series we're doing on this ASMR channel, looking at the Nordics, Scandinavia and Finland. And today we're going to be taking a little deeper dive into learning about Stockholm, the capital of Sweden. I did Oslo last week, and then I intend to do Copenhagen and Helsinki very soon. If you want me to do other cities and towns, then by all means write a comment and I'll see when I can get to them. It'll certainly inspire me, and a little bit of peer pressure helps to make me record them sooner. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I loved making the last one and finding out lots about Oslo. Stockholm is a city I have been to and really enjoyed, so I will be aware of more of the information in this one. I've never been to Norway. I've been to Finland, Denmark and Sweden. I haven't got to Norway just yet. Okay, we're going to do this in English so that all my subscribers can understand it. Stockholm, capital and largest city of Sweden. I hope this video is really relaxing, so sit back, listen if you want to, don't have to watch, stick some headphones in and chill out. Stockholm is the capital and most populous city of Sweden, as well as the largest urban area in the Nordic countries. That's what we're about in this channel. Approximately 1 million people live in the municipality, with 2.1 million in the urban area and 2.4 million in the metropolitan area. The city stretches across 14 islands, where Lake Mälaren flows into the Baltic Sea. Outside the city to the east and along the coast is the island chain of the Stockholm archipelago. This area, or the area, has been settled since the Stone Age in the 6th millennium BC and was founded as a city in 1252 by major Swedish statesman Birger Karl Jarl. Birger Jarl. The city serves as the county seat of Stockholm County. Quick facts. Nice pictures of Gamla stan. Stockholms Stadhuset, the city hall, and Västerbron in the background. Kastellet, citadel on Kastelholmen. Kista Science Tower in Kista, north of Stockholm city. The tallest office building in Scandinavia. Stockholm Globe Arena, Globen. And the RAA building database. And the municipality of Stockholm flag. So as we know, Stockholm is located on the east coast, about a third of the way up, I think. 1, 2, 3, yeah, say about nearly a third of the way up the country. And that's it, located within the EU. The province is Södermanland and Uppland. Stockholm County, first mentioned 1252, Charter 13th century. Some other bits of information: the capital city is 188 kilometers squared. The elevation is only 92 feet. Obviously it's an archipelago, so it's near water, 28 meters above sea level. The density of the capital city is 5,300 people per kilometer squared. Demonyms, I can't say that word in English, demonyms. Stockholmare. Okay. Stockholm is the cultural, media, political and economic centre of Sweden. The Stockholm region alone accounts for over a third of the country's GDP and is among the top 10 regions in Europe by GDP per capita. Considered a global city, it is the largest in Scandinavia and the main centre for corporate headquarters in the Nordic region. The city is home to some of Europe's top-ranking universities, such as the Karolinska Institute, Stockholm School of Economics, KTH Royal Institute of Technology and Stockholm University. It hosts the annual Nobel Prize ceremonies and banquet at the Stockholm Concert Hall and Stockholm City Hall. One of the city's most prized museums, the Vasa Museum, is the most visited museum in Scandinavia. The Stockholm Metro, opened in 1950, is well known for the decor of its stations. It has been called the longest art gallery in the world. Yes, it's very ornate. The city was the host of the 1912 Summer Olympics and has played host to several other international sport events since. The World Cup was there famously. Stockholm is Sweden's primary finance centre and hosts several of Sweden's largest companies, such as Ericsson and Investor AB. The headquarters of most of Sweden's largest banks are in Stockholm. Kista, located in northern Stockholm, is one of Europe's major tech centres. Stockholm has sometimes been called Europe's innovation hub. Many Stockholm-based startups have achieved unicorn status. The Stockholm region has a GDP of around $180 billion, and Stockholm County has the highest GDP per capita of all counties in Sweden. Stockholm is the seat of the Swedish government and most of its agencies, including the highest courts in the judiciary and the official residences of the Swedish monarch and the Prime Minister. The government has its seat in the Rosenbad building. The Riksdag, Swedish Parliament, is seated in the Parliament House, and the Prime Minister's residence is adjacent at the Saer House. Stockholm Palace is the official residence and principal workplace of the Swedish monarch, while Drottningholm Palace in neighbouring Ekerö serves as the royal family's private residence. A 14th century vaulted cellar remains of the Blackfriars Monastery in the old town. Details of engraving of Stockholm from Suecia Antiqua et Odierna, printed in 1693. And a panorama of Stockholm circa 1868, as seen from a hot air balloon. You can see the archipelago and all the islands. Stockholm in 1917. I actually watched a documentary on how people made it originally to Sweden, so this is very interesting for me. I actually watched it in Swedish as well, so I want to check I understood correctly. After the Ice Age, around 8000 BC, there were already many people living in what is today the Stockholm area, but as temperatures dropped, inhabitants moved south. Thousands of years later, as the ground thawed, the climate became tolerable, and the lands became fertile. People began to migrate back to the north. At the intersection of the Baltic Sea, the lake Mälaren is an archipelago site where the old town of Stockholm was first built, from about 1000 CE by Vikings. They had a positive trade impact on the area because of the trade routes they created. Stockholm's location appears in Norse sagas as Anjafit and in Heimskringla in connection with the legendary king Agne. Birka, located near Stockholm, was one of Sweden's major trade centres during the Viking Age, and its restored remains are one of Stockholm's most visited sites. I think I've been there. The earliest written mention of the name Stockholm dates from 1252, by which time the mines in Bergslagen made it an important site in the iron trade. The first part of the name, stock, means log in Swedish, although it may also be connected to an old German word stock meaning The second part of the name, Holm, means islet, and is thought to refer to the islet Helgeandsholmen in central Stockholm. According to the Erik Chronicles, the city is said to have been founded by Birger Jarl to protect Sweden from sea invasions made by Karelians after the pillage of Sigtuna on Lake Mälaren in the summer of 1187. Stockholm's core, the present Old Town Gamla Stan, was built on the central island next to Helgeandsholmen from the mid-13th century onward. The city originally rose to prominence as a result of the Baltic trade of the Hanseatic League. Stockholm developed strong economic and cultural linkages with Lübeck, Hamburg, Gdansk, Visby, Reval and Riga during this time. Between 1296 and 1478, Stockholm City Council was made up of 24 members, half of whom were selected from the town's German-speaking burghers, reflecting the importance of Germans in medieval Nordic trade. The strategic and economic importance of the city made Stockholm an important factor in relations between the Danish kings of the Kalmar Union and the Swedish national independence movement in the 15th century and early 16th century. The Danish king Christian II was able to enter the city in 1520, and on the 8th of November of that year, a massacre of opposition figures called the Stockholm Bloodbath took place and set off further uprisings that eventually led to the breakup of the Kalmar Union. With the accession of Gustav Vasa in 1523 and the establishment of royal power, the population of Stockholm began to grow, reaching 10,000 by 1600. The 17th century saw Sweden grow into a major European power, reflected in the development of the city, Stockholm. From 1610 to 1680, the population multiplied sixfold. In 1634, Stockholm became the official capital of the Swedish Empire. Trading rules were also created that gave Stockholm an essential monopoly over trade between foreign merchants and other Swedish, Baltic and Scandinavian territories. In 1697, Tre Kronor Castle burned and was replaced by Stockholm Palace. The time of the Swedish Empire also saw several architectural modernizations of the city. The beginning of the Swedish Empire saw a renaissance in the arts and sciences. The new Queen Christina was a strong supporter of science and culture. René Descartes, one of the most prominent European philosophers of his time, died in Stockholm. He had been hosted by the Queen for several years prior to his death. Inventors like Christopher Polhem moved to the city during the time of the Swedish Empire. Academics also spent much time in Stockholm, like Olaus Rudbeck, rector of the Uppsala University. Throughout Sweden's history, walls were created in Stockholm to defend the city from attacks. These defensive walls were modified throughout the 13th to the 16th century. In 1625, the Great Stockholm Fire of 1625 destroyed the southwestern section of Stadsholmen, an island in the centre of Stockholm. The amount of destruction led to the beginning of the demolition of the Stockholm walls. Today, most of the younger city walls cannot be found anywhere above ground. However, parts of the northern city walls are preserved in the modern Museum of Medieval Stockholm. In 1710, a plague killed about 20,000, 36% of the population. After the end of the Great Northern War, the city stagnated, population growth halted, and economic growth slowed. The city was in shock after having lost its place as the capital of a great power. However, Stockholm maintained its role as the political centre of Sweden and continued to develop as the country's economic and cultural capital. During the Age of Enlightenment in the late 18th century, the city flourished. The new monarch, Gustav III, proved an able and energetic regent. His economic policies helped the Swedish economy develop, and his partially successful war against Russia restored some of Sweden's international reputation. The king was an avid patron of the arts, and scientists and cultural figures flocked to Stockholm on a scale unprecedented since the reign of Queen Christina. During this time, Carl Michael Bellman and Josef Martin Kraus helped develop the city's music, a process further accelerated by the founding of the Royal Swedish Opera. Various artists and writers became prominent, funded by the king and other cultural patrons like Carl Gustaf Tessin. And the two aforementioned figures led the base for Sweden's National Museum. Science also became prevalent. Renowned figures like Carl Linnaeus and Anders Celsius spent time in Stockholm, and various research institutes like the Stockholm Observatory were founded. There's quite a lot more. I think I'll skip little bits. The early 19th century saw an economic decline of Stockholm and Sweden as a whole, but by the second half of the 19th century, Stockholm had regained its leading economic role. The population also grew dramatically during this time, mainly through immigration. At the end of the 19th century, less than 40% of the residents were Stockholm-born, with most migrants being from rural Sweden. Major settlement began to expand outside the historical city limits. From 1887 to 1953, the old Stockholm telephone tower was a landmark. Originally built to link telephone lines, it became redundant after these were buried, and it was later used for advertising before its demolition in the 20th century. The early 20th century also saw the creation of the Nobel Prizes, some of Stockholm's most renowned institutions. Stockholm became a modern and ethnically diverse city in the latter half of the 20th century. Many historical buildings were torn down during the modernist era, including substantial parts of the historical district of Klara, which caused major controversy, and replaced with modern architecture. However, in many other parts of Stockholm, such as Gamla stan, Södermalm, Östermalm, Kungsholmen and Vasastan, many older buildings, blocks and streets, built before the modernism and functionalism movement, survived this era of demolition. Stockholm's metropolitan area is one of the fastest growing regions in Europe, and its population is expected to number 2.5 million by 2024. In 2020 alone, Stockholm's population increased by 1,477. As a result of this massive population growth, there has been a proposal to build densely packed high-rise buildings in the city centre, connected by elevated walkways, though these have been opposed by several groups. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the little dip of our toes into the beautiful, lovely capital of Sweden, Stockholm. So my intention, as I stated, is to come up with two more, definitely. We'll do the capitals of Finland and Denmark next, as we've done Sweden and Norway already. But by all means, write me a comment and encourage me to do other cities in the Nordics areas, anywhere from Scandinavia or Finland, and I'll happily do those videos as well. I really hope you found this video either informative, interesting, or just plain relaxing. If you did, give it a like, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Particularly if you made it this far, you clearly enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys really, really soon, okay? Take care.